Aita, drama, secrets, confessions. Welcome to Trove Reddit.
I never thought there would come a day when my own wife would look me straight in the eyes and say, "Stop it, don't parent my kids anymore." That moment felt like a knife stabbing straight into my heart. Do you know the feeling of giving up your entire youth to carry someone else's family, only to be repaid with one cold, dismissive sentence? Painful. Humiliating. Utterly shocking. I once believed I had finally found true happiness, but it turns out everything was just a sweet trap. A trap carefully set, and I was a fool who walked right into it. I loved her children as if they were my own flesh and blood, but in the end, I was nothing more than an outsider. Behind the doors of this family lies a truth so terrifying that even nightmares could never capture it. If you want to know what happened after that, make sure to hit subscribe so you won't miss it. The day I met her, I thought I was the luckiest man alive. A beautiful, charming woman, and yes, she already had 2 kids of her own. It might sound complicated, but back then I thought it was simple. If I loved her, I would love her children too. Was I just too naive? In the beginning, I did everything I could to prove I was worthy. I woke up earlier, drove the kids to school, came home from work and headed straight into the kitchen. Dinner, homework, birthdays, even parent-teacher meetings, I was always there. I turned myself into a super stepdad that any woman would dream of having. But you know what? From the very moment I thought I was doing the right thing, I had already stepped into a game with no way out. At first, the kids looked at me with distant eyes. One stayed silent like a stone, the other stared at me as if I were an intruder. But slowly, they opened their hearts and started calling me Dad. Hearing those 2 words, my chest tightened. Can you imagine the feeling of being acknowledged as a father, even without sharing blood? It was sacred. I gave up promotions at work just to drive them to basketball practice, go camping, or simply wait outside their tutoring classes. People said, a stepdad only needs to provide money. But me? I gave up my career just to earn a single smile from those kids. Was I a fool? Yet over time, I started to feel that something was wrong. My wife began saying strange things like, "You care a little too much," or "Don't get too involved." At first, I thought she was joking. But no, her cold, distant eyes told me more than any words ever could. She didn't want me to be their real father. Why? Why would a woman want a man to carry her family, but deny him the right to be a dad? The more love I gave, the more I felt pushed aside. It was like I was just playing the role of a stand-in in a script she had already written. Have you ever lived inside a family, yet still felt like nothing more than a tenant? Everything exploded on what seemed like an ordinary evening. My 13-year-old son's teacher called to report that he had been caught smoking in the school bathroom. Think about it, if you were a father, what would you do? I rushed straight into his room, looked him right in the eyes, and said the words any father would have to say. I didn't yell, I didn't hit him, but I made him understand, it was time for him to take responsibility for his actions. I remember clearly, he lowered his head, his eyes filled with tears. In that moment, I felt like I had just done the right thing. I had finally become a real father. But do you know what happened next? My entire world collapsed within minutes. My wife had overheard the whole conversation. She stormed in, her face flushed red, her voice shaking the entire house. "Who do you think you are? Don't you ever discipline my kids again. You have no right." I was stunned. Everything I had sacrificed over the years was suddenly erased in a single sentence. Can you imagine that feeling? It was as if I was nothing more than a stranger barging into a family that was never mine to begin with. I looked at my son. He was terrified, backing away, his eyes darting between me and his mother. And in that moment, I realized. I had lost. Not lost to a child, but lost to my own wife. The one who was supposed to be my ally had turned me into the enemy right in front of her son. I stood frozen, while she coldly repeated, "From now on, you are only my husband, not their father." Those words were like knives, shredding apart every illusion I had ever held onto. And I started to wonder, all this time, had I only been a shadow for her to use? What do you think? Should a man in this situation stay silent and endure, or stand up and protect his pride? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to know the truth behind that cold declaration, make sure to hit subscribe so you won't miss the next part. From that day on, the house was no longer a place I could call family. The air turned cold, every meal suffocating in silence. The kids suddenly grew cautious whenever they spoke to me, as if their mother's warning echoed in their heads, "Don't let him interfere." Do you know what it feels like to live in the very house you pay for, yet feel like nothing more than an intruder? Every night, I sat alone in a corner, listening to the laughter of my wife and her children from the next room. That same laughter once warmed my heart, but now it cut through me like a blade. I realized I was being pushed out little by little, no shouting, no fights, just quietly erased from their lives. Have you ever felt yourself becoming nothing but a shadow in your own family? One night, I went to see my best friend and told him everything. He smirked and asked bluntly, "Are you sure your wife wanted a father for her kids? Or did she just want a walking wallet?" I froze. His words were bitter, but they struck the exact truth I had been trying so hard to deny. I started recalling every detail. From the very beginning, she had never truly allowed me to have a say in raising them. Every important decision about the kids, she made alone, and I was only informed afterward. I was allowed to pay and to show up, just enough to make us look like a perfect family. Was it possible that from the start, I had only been a pawn in a game she had orchestrated? The greatest pain wasn't being disrespected. The greatest pain was realizing I had never truly been accepted. The children loved me, but they still had to obey their mother. And my wife, the person I had trusted completely, only wanted to keep all the control for herself. Tell me, do you think a family can truly exist when love itself is restricted and divided? I couldn't keep living like an outsider in my own family anymore. One evening, after another heavy, silent dinner, I looked my wife straight in the eyes and said, "If I'm not allowed to be their father, then I won't play the role of the one paying for your mistakes." The room exploded. She froze, and the kids broke down in tears. I had never seen them so terrified. They ran to me, clinging to me, crying out, "Dad, please don't leave us." Can you even imagine it? The very children their mother said I had no right to raise were now begging me not to walk away. My heart felt like it was being ripped into 100 pieces. Should I listen to them, or should I protect my own pride? My wife stood there, stunned. She never expected the kids would choose me over her. For the first time, I saw real panic in her eyes, the fear of losing the control she had always held. But it was too late. Once trust is broken, can it ever truly be repaired? I decided to move out for a few days, to let the three of them face the truth on their own. I don't know where this marriage will go from here. Will I come back and fight for it until the end? Or will I let go and leave everything behind like a broken dream? What would you do, if you were in my place? The only thing I know for sure is this: I have been a father, whether the adults want to admit it or not. And the one thing that still keeps me torn is the genuine love those kids have for me. But is that love strong enough to save everything? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you won't miss what happens next, because what's coming will be even more shocking. I thought leaving the house for a few days would calm everything down. But no, it only revealed a truth I had never dared to imagine. The moment I moved out, my phone began buzzing with messages from an unknown number. Short, cold words: "You're just a puppet. She never considered you family." How would you react if suddenly, a stranger knew the darkest details of your private life? At first, I didn't believe it. But then came the next message, and this time, it had a photo attached. A photo of my wife having dinner with another man. The way she looked at him. It was the exact same look she once gave me. Was everything nothing but a cover-up for an even bigger secret? I decided to follow her. One night, I caught her walking out of a hotel with that same man. My mind exploded. It wasn't enough that I was forbidden from being a father, now I discovered I might have only been a replacement even in my own marriage. Tell me, could any ordinary man survive this double betrayal? But what shook me even more was what I learned next. That man wasn't just anyone. He was the biological father of her children. The one she had always claimed was gone, unreachable for years. But the truth? He had never disappeared. He had been lurking in the shadows all along, letting me shoulder the burden, only to reappear once the family was stable again. A horrifying question echoed in my head: had I been used from the very beginning? Was this entire marriage nothing more than a bridge, a way for the children's real father to return with dignity? If that's the truth, then I was nothing but a foolish pawn in a game of love they had scripted long before. I couldn't believe my eyes as I stood in front of that hotel. My wife. Walking side by side with him, the man who was supposed to be gone forever. The biological father of her children. The very man she had sworn had disappeared from their lives. In that moment, it felt like the blood in my veins turned to ice. Have you ever been betrayed so deeply that it felt like you couldn't even breathe? I couldn't hold myself back. I stepped out of the shadows, blocking their path. She froze in shock. And him? He smirked, looked me straight in the eye, and said, "You were just the replacement. This family was never yours." Every word hit me like a hammer to the skull. And the worst part, my wife didn't deny it. She said nothing. Her silence was an admission. The fight exploded. I shouted, "Where were you when those kids needed a father? Who stayed awake all night when they were sick? Who sacrificed everything, even his career, for them?" But he just folded his arms, his eyes burning with arrogance. It doesn't matter what you did. You'll never be their father. My blood runs in their veins, not yours. And my wife. She just cried. Not out of guilt. Not out of love. But because she'd been caught. In that moment, I realized something painful. I was fighting a war I had never stood a chance of winning. How could I compete against their real father? How could I hold on to a woman whose heart had never truly belonged to me? And then, the kids appeared at the doorway. They stood frozen, watching their real father and me face off. The confusion, the fear, the heartbreak in their eyes. It cut me deeper than any words ever could. And I knew, from this moment on, nothing in our lives would ever be the same again. So I ask you, if you were in my place, what would you do? Would you fight until the very end? Or would you walk away with the last shred of dignity you had left? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, because the darkest truth of all is still yet to be revealed. After that night, my family shattered, in every sense of the word. The kids no longer looked at me the same way. They were torn, confused, caught between their love for me and their curiosity about the biological father who had suddenly appeared. Can you imagine? Years of building myself up as their father. Undone in a single moment. My wife tried to explain, but every word she spoke cut deeper, like twisting a knife in an open wound. She admitted she'd been secretly keeping in touch with him all along. She claimed it was so the children would know their real father still existed. But I knew better. If that were truly the reason, why hide it from me for so many years? The days that followed turned the house into a silent battlefield. Every meal was unbearable, 3 pairs of eyes staring at me, as if asking the same question, Dad, are you really going to leave us? And my heart shattered. I couldn't answer them. Because the truth was, I didn't know if I had the strength to stay anymore. Have you ever stood on the edge of a choice, on one side, the pure love of children, and on the other, the venom of betrayal from an adult you trusted? What shocked me most wasn't even my wife. It was him. The man had the audacity to start showing up more often, calling himself Dad right in front of me, while I was still sitting at the table. The arrogance made my blood boil. But I stayed silent. Silent, because I knew the moment I lost control, the children would witness something no child should ever have to see. I could feel myself being pushed out, piece by piece. No more laughter. No more family outings. No more dinners filled with warmth. All of it, gone. Replaced by a cold, suffocating emptiness. The family I once believed was my greatest happiness had become nothing but the ruins of a broken dream. And deep inside, I knew, the final battle was coming. One last decision. A choice that would change everything, not just for me, but for those innocent children caught in the crossfire. The day of my final decision had come. I couldn't endure one more day living in a house where I was nothing but a shadow. I called all 3 of them into the living room, sat across from them like a man on trial. My heart was racing, but I knew I had to speak. Have you ever stood at a crossroads where every path ahead is drenched in blood and tears? I looked my wife straight in the eyes and said, I'm leaving this house. But I need to hear it from your own mouth. Was I nothing more than a replacement all this time? She lowered her head and stayed silent. And that silence killed me. The children burst into tears. They ran to me, clinging to me as if I was about to vanish forever. Dad, please don't leave us. You're the only one who's been there for us when life was hard. Hearing those words nearly broke me in two. Tell me, how could I walk away from these kids, when they were the only reason I kept going? But then, a sudden knock at the door. That man, their biological father, walked in, his voice cold as ice. They're my children, and I'm taking them with me. You have no right to stop me. In that moment, the blood in my veins boiled. On one side, the woman who betrayed me. On the other, the man who abandoned them, now demanding his rights. And caught in the middle of it all, I realized the truth. I was the only one who had ever truly fought for these children's happiness. I can't yet tell you what I did next. Because my decision that night will forever change the lives of everyone in this family. And maybe, some will say it was the craziest thing a man has ever done. So if it were you, would you walk away to protect your pride, or stay and fight for children who don't even share your blood? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, because the next chapter of this story will shock you beyond belief.